Hi everyone, today I'm going to be talking to you about women in Hollywood, particularly the gender pay gap, the sexual harassment and sexual assault that led to last year's Me Too movement, female representation in film and TV, both on screen and behind the scenes, as well as touching on some of Hollywood's top female filmmakers today. So to start off, I'd like to start talking about the gender pay gap between actresses and actors in Hollywood. Now, though A-list actresses still make a ton of money, the pay gap is actually worse here than in any other American workforce. According to Forbes, between June 1st of 2016 and June 1st of 2017, the world's highest paid actresses made a combined total of $172.5 million, while the 10 highest paid actors earned more than double that amount, $488.5 million. In most professions in America, women make 80 cents to every dollar that a man makes, which is bad enough. In Hollywood, however, on average, actresses make 30 cents for every dollar an actor makes, according to CNBC.com. Now, while a lot of people might not feel that bad for these A-list actresses because they still make a ton of money, the fact that they make 30% of what their male counterparts make is inexcusable. Moving on to something even worse is the rate of sexual harassment and sexual assault that goes on in Hollywood, particularly in on-screen talent, including actresses and models. Now, of course, this has been a part of Hollywood, unfortunately, since the very beginning of film and television in Hollywood, since the 1930s and 40s and 50s. But people don't realize that it's actually still extremely prevalent today. According to a survey published in USA Today, February of 2018, 94% of women in Hollywood today have experienced sexual harassment or misconduct at some point in their career. Of that 94%, 87% witnessed unwelcome sexual comments, jokes, or gestures told to or about them. 75% witnessed others experiencing sexual comments, jokes, or gestures. 69% were touched without consent in a sexual way. 64% were actually propositioned for a sexual act or relationship in exchange for career opportunities or career advancement. 39% were shown sexual pictures without consent. 29% were flashed or exposed to. 21% were actually forced to do a sexual act, and 10% were asked to appear naked for auditions. Now, while those statistics are horrifying in themselves, the ones coming up next are arguably worse. Only 25% of the women who experienced that sexual harassment actually reported their experiences to anyone out of fear of professional and or personal retribution or backlash. Out of those 25% that reported anything happening, only 28% said that after reporting that they felt their workplace environment improve in any way. Now, out of everything that I'm going to be talking about here today, this is the most disturbing and serious problem that needs to be addressed. And these articles did talk about that, the recent huge Me Too movement that's been going on, and the fact that this new generation of women our age and younger that are coming in are being taught differently. There's more awareness around these issues, so hopefully these numbers should decline in the future, but it's still something that really needs to be kept an eye on because that is not okay. Moving on to women representation on film and TV. So this is something that I've learned about all throughout my DePaul career and basically every single year. In my Foundations of Film class, TV genres class, and a bunch of media and cinema classes that I've taken. Since the beginning of film and TV, women have been represented as over-sexualized, less intelligent than men, and basically portrayed as background characters in stories told for, about, and by men. Now, today in 2019, obviously the quality and number of female representations has definitely improved, but we still have a long way to go. So today there's something that probably a lot of people have heard of called the Bechdel test, which is a measure of how women are portrayed in film and television. Now, in order to pass the test, the film or TV show must, 1, have at least 2 women who, 2, talk to each other, about 3, something besides a man. Now, this test was kind of created as a way to measure how well women are represented in media, to see if they possess their own intelligence, their own power, agency, and ability to further a storyline on their own without a male protagonist. Now, when talking about female characters on screen, According to womeninhollywood.com, these are some statistics from the top 100 grossing movies of 2018. Of those movies, 40% featured female lead or co-lead. 40%. Now, this is actually an 8% increase since 2017, since the previous year, and a 20% increase since 2007, which is just really sad for 2007. Now, it's good that it's good that it's improving, but this statistic still needs a lot of work. Out of those movies, only 11 featured a female lead or co-lead 45 years or older, and only 11 featured an underrepresented minority lead or co-lead. Now, when it comes to sole protagonists of a film, female characters only accounted for 31% of those, which is actually a recent historical high. And side note, sole female protagonists are more than twice as likely to appear in independent films rather than studio films. Now, when it comes to the genres of female protagonists, 32% of them were in comedies, 29% in drama, 10% in sci-fi, and only 7% in action. And when it comes to major characters in films, women accounted for only 36%, and women accounted for only 35% of all speaking characters, which means overall audiences are almost twice as likely to see a male character on screen as a female character on screen. So 35% of films had 10 or more females, 52% of films had 5 to 9 females, but there were actually 13% of those films only had 0 to 4 females. Female characters tend to be younger than their male counterparts. 29% of female characters are in their 20s, and 28% of them are in their 30s, while male characters, 60% of male characters were in their 30s or 40s. Now, when it comes to more of like the personality and storylines of these characters, 70% of male characters are likely to have work-related goals, whereas only 30% of female characters are portrayed as having work-related goals. Conversely, 54% of females have personal goals, while males only have 46%. 64% of men are seen in work-related roles in these films, and only 44% of females are seen in work-related roles. 48% of females have personal life-related roles in these films, while only 30% of males do. Now, when it comes to characters in leadership positions, females only accounted for 26%, and males 74%. Now, in films with at least one woman writer and or director, females comprised 57% of protagonists, 47% of major characters, and 43% of all speaking roles. Now, when it came to films that were exclusively male writers and directors, females only accounted for 21% of protagonists, 32% of all major characters, and 32% of all speaking characters. So that's sad. Now, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, of all the characters with speaking roles, female characters with speaking roles, 65% of them were white, 21% black, 10% Asian, 4% Latina, 1% another minority. And when it comes to the major female characters, 70% are white, 18% black, 8% Asian, and 4% Latina, which is obviously not good. And there was actually a note, too, in these articles that said that the 10% and 8% Asian that I just listed actually is skewed because of the movie Crazy Rich Asians, which is a film, obviously, with mostly Asian characters, and there are a lot of females speaking in major roles in that film, which kind of skews the data, and so without that, those numbers are actually much lower. Now, moving on to women in behind-the-scenes roles, women account for roughly 50% of all moviegoers in America, but only 17% of content creators. So when it comes to the top 100 top grossing films of 2018, women accounted for 16% of directors, producers, executive producers, writers, editors, and cinematographers total. So all of those roles, women were only 16%. So breaking that down, 18% of executive producers were women, 18% of producers were women, 15% of writers were women, 14% of editors were women, only 3% of cinematographers were women. And when it comes to the 112 directors of these films, 96.4% were men, and 3.6% were women, making that a gender ratio of 27-1. And lastly, there was not one female A, B, or C camera op in any of the top grossing live action films. So that's clearly something that needs to be worked on. I knew that those numbers were low, but until doing this research, I did not realize that they were that low. So to kind of end on a more positive note, I'd like to talk about some of the powerful top female filmmakers in the industry. So Reese Witherspoon is obviously a famous actress, everyone knows, but she also owns Hello Sunshine, which is a media and production company whose mission is to discover and create content that celebrates women and puts them at the center of the story, striving to shine light on female authorship and agency. So her company actually partnered with AT&T and Fresh Films to create a summer filmmaking program for young women in order to give them tools to be able to tell their stories. Her production company also puts out Big Little Lies, which is a really good HBO series. If no one has seen it, you guys should check it out. It's adapted from a novel written by a female author, and it stars 5 female protagonists. Shonda Rhimes is the first African-American woman to create and executive produce a top 10 network series, Grey's Anatomy. She also founded and runs the production company Shondaland, which put out her other top TV shows, including Private Practice, Scandal, and How to Get Away with Murder. In Scandal, I believe she wrote and was the showrunner of that as well and produced it. Elizabeth Merriweather is the creator, writer, and producer of the Fox sitcom New Girl, which ran from 2011 to 2018, which also stars a female protagonist. And Mindy Kaling, finally, is the creator and showrunner of The Mindy Project, which ran from 2012 to 2017, in which she wrote, produced, and starred in the series from start to finish, which obviously is also about a female protagonist she's in a professional environment too. So the inequality of power and representation between men and women in Hollywood, both on screen and off, has improved in recent years, definitely, as I've kind of touched on, but we still have a long way to go, particularly in the pay gap that I talked about between actors and actresses, as well as the number of female characters, both, on screen, as well as content creatives behind the scenes. We need a lot more women in these roles, and so it's encouraging for me to see that since my time at DePaul, I've seen a lot of women in my film classes, which I think is a good thing. It means that there will be, these numbers will improve in the future. But also positive representations of women, like seeing women that have more work goals as opposed to personal goals, like the statistics I talked about earlier. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you guys learned something.